She was in tears, but still took his hand and said, "Yours or no one." She was crying so hard that her hands shook, the kind of quiet crying that happens when someone is trying not to fall apart in public. People passed her without stopping. A few glanced, then looked away. And then there was him, standing just a few feet away, unsure if one small act of kindness could change anything at all. What happened next wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was powerful enough to change two lives forever, and remind everyone watching that kindness doesn't need permission to matter. Before the story begins, take a moment to support the channel, Heartfelt Moments. If stories like this move you, please subscribe, tap the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps keep these real, meaningful stories alive. Now, let me tell you how it all began. Her name was Emily Carter. She was 32, lived in a small Ohio town, and had spent most of her life being the person others leaned on. She worked as a receptionist at a physical therapy clinic, always smiling, always patient. But that morning, the weight she carried finally became too heavy. Emily had just left the courthouse. Not because she had done anything wrong, but because she had finally admitted something painful: her marriage was over. Years of emotional distance, broken promises, and feeling invisible had ended with a signature on paper. She told herself she would be strong. She told herself she wouldn't cry. But the moment she stepped outside and sat on a bench across the street, the tears came anyway. She stared at her wedding ring, turning it slowly, wondering how something that once meant forever could now feel so empty. Her chest hurt. Her breath felt shallow. She felt embarrassed for crying in public, yet too exhausted to care. That's when Mark noticed her. Mark Reynolds was 40, a high school history teacher and a widower. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier from cancer, leaving behind a quiet house and a heart that still hadn't fully healed. That day, he had taken a personal day, walking downtown just to clear his head. When he saw Emily crying, he hesitated. He didn't want to intrude. He didn't want to make things awkward. But something in her posture, the way her shoulders collapsed inward, felt familiar. He remembered that feeling. So he walked over slowly and said, "I'm sorry to bother you. I just wanted to ask, are you okay?" Emily looked up, startled. Her eyes were red, her cheeks wet. For a moment, she considered brushing him off. But instead, she shook her head. "No," she whispered. "Not really." Mark nodded, understanding more than she knew. "Do you want some company? I can sit here quietly. Or I can leave. Whatever you need." That simple choice broke something open in her. "You can sit," she said. They didn't talk at first. Mark just sat beside her, not too close, not too far. He handed her a clean handkerchief he kept in his coat pocket. Emily laughed softly through her tears, surprised by the old-fashioned gesture. "My granddad carried these," Mark said with a small smile. "Guess it rubbed off." Minutes passed. Then Emily spoke. "I thought love was supposed to feel safe," she said. "But somewhere along the way, I felt like I was begging to be seen." Mark listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't try to fix it. "That hurts," he said gently. "Feeling alone next to someone is worse than being alone." Emily looked at him, really looked at him, and realized this stranger wasn't just being polite. He was present. They talked for nearly an hour. About loss. About disappointment. About the quiet strength it takes to keep going when life doesn't turn out the way you planned. When Emily stood to leave, her legs felt weak. Emotion drained her. Mark noticed and instinctively offered his hand to help her up. She paused. Her tears returned, but this time they were different. Softer. Honest. She took his hand and held it longer than necessary. "I don't even know your last name," she said, her voice shaking. "But right now, it feels like the safest thing I've held all day." Mark swallowed hard. "I'm glad I could be here." Emily looked at their joined hands, then back at him. She said quietly, yours or no one. It wasn't romantic in the usual way. It was raw. Vulnerable. A promise born from trust, not fantasy. They exchanged numbers before parting ways. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. They met for coffee. Then dinner. Then long walks where words weren't always needed. Mark never rushed her. Emily never pretended to be someone she wasn't. Kindness became the foundation of everything they built. Mark showed up every time. When Emily had nightmares about her past. When she doubted herself. When she cried for reasons she couldn't explain. Emily, in return, helped Mark laugh again. She listened to stories about his late wife with respect, never jealousy. She honored the love that came before, instead of competing with it. One evening, months later, Emily stood in Mark's kitchen, holding his hand again. She wasn't crying this time. You know, she said softly, I used to think strength meant not needing anyone. Mark squeezed her hand. And now? Now I think strength is choosing kindness, especially when you're broken. Years later, people would ask how they met. They never said love at first sight. They said kindness at the right moment. And that was enough. Because sometimes, the smallest act, sitting beside someone in silence, offering a hand without conditions, can change everything. If this story touched your heart, remember this, you never know how deeply someone needs your kindness today. A simple gesture might become the moment they never forget. And that is how love, real love, often begins.